everybody. Welcome in from the wide world of the web. Tonight is going to be a special night for Backroom Broadsides. We're going to be celebrating the 59th issue of Big Scream magazine from Michigan. Now, the first issue of Big Scream magazine came out in 1974. Winner of the National Book Award for Poetry that year was a poem called The Fall of America by Allen Ginsberg. Reading tonight will be in many ways a look back on 1974 because we have 4 poets tonight who will be in the 59th issue of Big Scream magazine. 2 of those poets, David Cope, the publisher of Big Scream magazine, and Bob Rosenthal, were extremely close to Allen Ginsberg. David was a protege of Allen Ginsberg's, and Bob Rosenthal, for 20 years, was Allen Ginsberg's personal secretary. Now, some 300 poets, more than 300 poets appeared in Big Scream magazine over the years. So it's really great to celebrate this lifeline to so many of us. And it wasn't just the magazine. David would be sending email or letters. We used to do letters, encouraging people, telling schmucks like me, your work is really worthwhile. Keep doing it. And I can say, I can only speak, without that encouragement, I don't know what I'd be doing now. I know being old wouldn't be this easy. And I'm in his debt, and in the debt of the third poet between Bob and David, of Allen Ginsberg himself. When I was up to high school in the town, it's now called Elmwood Park. In those days, it was called East Patterson, but Patterson was having troubles, so the real estate guys changed the name of East Patterson to Elmwood Park. But when I was in high school, I would run across Route 4 bridge into Patterson and saw Alan Reed with Louis, with his brother Eugene, and the Benai Brith ladies had made cookies, and there was rugula, and this beautiful scene in Patterson. And I had my book of poetry. I was 17, and Alan, and this is the father for many of us, not for everybody, but for many of us, the father of American poetry. So tonight's reading will start with David Cope and Bob Rosenthal reading back from an unpublished section of The Fall of America, the National Book Award winner of 1974. And the third poet, Allen Ginsberg, will sort of be with us again. And like him, I don't think he's like looking down, but he's here and he's in so many people's hearts. So we also have James Lenfeste and Ping Wang, who are 2 other poets who are in the magazine. I will introduce them when we come to them later. And so let me just introduce these first 2 poets. David has published several books of poetry and has recently come out with his selected poems, plus new poems, and has been doing a lot of work in China. He went to a poetry conference in China, was the only American representative in Sichuan, in Chengdu, which is in the province of Sichuan, in the west, the far west of China. China's no longer just the East Coast cities, which it was for so many years. Now we're becoming acquainted with the big, powerful West as well. Anyway, so without going into too much anymore, oh, and let me just say about Bob, as I said, 20 years, Allen Secretary, a wonderful poet. Bob told me when I was about 21 years old that I shouldn't shout when I read or read these. He said, because he didn't say shouldn't, but he said, you know, when you whisper, you get their attention because they'll lean forward to hear what you're saying. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I got from 50 years of trying to learn about this beautiful and, yes, sullen art. Anyway, without any further ado, the poem, The Fall of America, unpublished section, presented tonight by two of his favorite people, David Cope and Bob Rosenthal. David goes first. Okay, David, take it away.
So I'm up. Yeah. So we're only doing sections of it because it's a big poem, and we had to pick some sections that would be representative of it. And I'll start it. This is Denver to Montana, beginning 27 May 72, which was written not as a road poem, though it sounds like it, but it was too late for publication in the book. 72. The book was published in 71, but he also was so busy he never got around to editing it, so we had to. Here we go. Denver to Montana, beginning 27 May 72. West of Laramie, Elk Mountain's snow-covered top. Medicine Bow, mountains ranged black. That road still ribbons past red sandstone buttes. Looks like he should be a yogi on each rock. Down the vast green valley floor, like Utah, like America. Mountain rookeries cliff distant under cloud-fished transparent sky. The blue shield that might be heaven over the Ferris Mountains precipices, striped under snowy, dusty ridges. Great Divide Basin up Route 287, Gray Mud Lake at Muddy Gap. Rock wall leaned up from colossal ditch. Smooth stone sheet cracked by brush upsprung. Rattlesnake range rocks bunched up in mountain piles north blue-skied. Drywood snow fences snaked straight uphill south of the highway. Wood slats crossed together. Over hill, dinosaur snouts, blue rock brains, Sweetwater River meandering under split rock. To oasis down below Rattlesnake Range, hunters, trappers, Indians. Along the Oregon Trail, that gap on the mountaintop, where Manjushri's sword cleft a peak. We'll be at Sacagawea's grave ere sundown, Buddhists. She took those white folks double-crossed northwest and squealed on her own folk nature. Empty Montana abides. Straight ahead, the two-lane road under the yellow sun on full moon night, Buddha born. Snow pockets on wooded ridges south. We're at the end of the poem, America. These states of failure. Spoilage of earth. The war's still on. 7 years later, no mantra did end it. No politics. No pity. No reason. No peace march. No immolation. Vietnam afire with bombs, all karma exhausted. Here it's sweet space enough, but Whitman, Melville, Crane, and Kerouac are dead. The bitter prophet at Jeffrey City's grocery store, America's first uranium mill, hundreds of trailers camped around the highway south of Gas Hills. They say where they mine that radiant shite. Bob's turn.
Green mountain, snowfleck, clouds dwarfed in blue sky, yellowed by dusk, and there's wind, river, snow mountains rising diaphanous as clouds over ice slough. The waters disappeared since the 49ers Day. Old Denver Larimer streets destroyed, abruptly sliding past dirty snow into Sandcastle Valley, panorama below, entering ever vast valley, dry desert, car descending and descending and descending immensely. Imagine on bicycle or roller skates down into Butte Bluffs distance, into Wind River Reservation flats, slept by Bull Lake, crows chattering at dawn, dreamt the bus driver from Tibet wouldn't stop for the old Puerto Rican lady. Compassion. I called her back on the bus. I asked the man to halt and led her on into Wind River Canyon, icy rock peaks, big-horned far north, Teton ice slopes rising west, striated bluffs above the hunting ground valley, Crowheart Butte in great space. Hollywood had French horns announce these mountain panoramas down to Wind River's brown bubbling bed, vast alpine meadows slope to valley bottom, red worn cliff foreheads loom in sunlight, high snow shelves in winged space, black ravens over farmland, pasture cows in wet grass, horses cavorting, mounting each other at a distant fence. What war? Corals down to frothy river, wood houses, log barns, up over Tokagati Pass, Pinnacle Mountains, topped by a space shelter, and to Tetons range, snowy along horizon. Murmurs of Almora and Manali. We recalled Evans Wentz's name, frogs grackling, innumerable on the pine hillside. Far down, there the crows graze and the cows graze on a valley roadside before East cracks risen, big-titted. David.
I love that grockling. A path through the great divide. Anandamayi Ma. Hair flowing down aging eyelids. Eyes in open samadhi glance. Moon-faced Trungpa Rinpoche smiling and immobile, serious-lipped. Campers and autos following the curved road down to Old Faithful, snow-spotted over DeLacy's creek bank, mid tall pines, short-branched needled fir, round stalk tips. Let it be on the radio. War lingers in Devaloka memory. Laird orders Montana missile site work ended. North Viets, several days ago at An Loc. Tanks from Moscow. China rail end in Hanoi raided. Haiphong harbor mined. Airstrikes on industrial plants. Hospital bombed. 7 million bomb craters. 1/2 Vietnam lethicided. How many years restore green leaf to bomb crater? Denise said 1,000,000 years for 1 inch of fertile soil. Bargain destiny. Kissinger Treaty. Kosygin salt. Jobs in Montana. Lovely. Give the missile land to young settlers. Subsidize Old Faithful. Happy lads who play guitar and climb New Zealand's mountains and smoke grass. Mist streaming out of Paradise Earth Flats. Yellowstone Walt Disney'd. Sulfur gas. Pipes and asphalt. Spruce forests line the shore, carpeting the flat uplands. Snowy Rockies surrounding horizon. Headache. Sweet watermelon. Is that breakfast steak? Hare Krishna Guru Om. What mantra remove my headache? Or poor mortal bellied painhead nauseous body? Ah, ice white in the blue lake. Snow ranges cloud puffed. Clouds floating in smooth water. Heavy spout, old faithful, satanic limestone, hot water beards, slept in tourist camp, singing Blake, Om Mani Padme Hum, Shasamaha, leaving Yellowstone. Downstream sulfur heat flows through a dragon mouth spout into bubbling brown cold river. Unreal vast spaces, muraled against sky azure. Vein-peaked mountain misted, be here now, llama cliffs. Robed with pine-shouldered vests, granite snout lifted to cloud puff. Rode to Bozeman up from Mammoth Hot Springs. Through the grassy hill walls, risen west under leviathan-bellied cloud mast afloat, lost in space. Mist-bodied vast pigs over granite mountains. Snowfields melting in conscienceless light blue heaven. Clouds risen from snow ridges, connected with long piney shoulders. Light in the vast air-blued sun, glary valley floor, grassed, bushed, housed and treed at foot of hills, rolling with rich pine forests, thousands of feet above a meadow fringe, streamed down green beside the tiny auto road down to a brown farmhouse as big as the valley to Zawin. Heaven, heaven, heaven here. Earth risen, mellow granitic, cows in flats, wet with irrigation pipes above ground in great streaming wheels. Sun-browned valley heart plowed with humans' tools. Cowherd chasing ahead of the cowboy. An old feller on a horse with horn-rimmed glasses riding with his dogs by the speckled highway. Across the irrigation ditch's square-wired fence, field clustered with yellow blossoms, through narrow granite shoulder pass, gate descending to brown and rotten detritus at mountain foot. Stuck with telephone poles and pines, out through vast spaces. West on the 90 double lane, sun still over Sky Center, shining down on Yellowstone's peaks behind us. Bob. Hope he's there.
Jefferson, Gallatin, Madison, streams converge in a quiet spot, grass still growing to the river's marges. Lewis and Clark picnicked here with Sacagawea, approaching her Shoshone family for horses to cross the Great Divide. Sweet smell of dogwood on the aisle. Slopes westward over the valley, up the great hill and down to new mountains, brown snow-flecked walls over canyon deeps where the road winds invisible miles distant to valley floors, and slow across the plain to Butte. See the huge crater dug by Anaconda. One look at Butte make you shudder, said Jack. No wonder. A hole in the ground big as the moon, and a town perched on the hill slope overlooked, dwarfed by the shelved opening pit. Wobbly's here, Joe Hill singing his Death in America. Who's the anaconda man that dug that wound of dust? And what's it? Oil derricks scattered Midtown Butte, wide main streets whizzing past, lined with red brick hotels. Get back to you, oh Butte, oh W.C. Fields, America, this your bitter secret town. an ecological disaster that I caused myself, speeding in my copper calliope gas buggy, throttles open, farting monoxide myself. As the open pit loses dust clouds covering roofs of Butte, chimneys and pumps and broken earth and oil spooled in the gravel field by the highway, half the ghetto overrun with refuse piles of giant earth, dependent on destroying Mama, digging a big noisome hole in her copper belly. Everybody lives here, gotta be mean, gotta drink through dirty mustache bars and fight on Saturday night because all here are like the butchers, dependent on murder of sentient nature. This town has no excuse to be but digging a hole in the world. Out through the high hills, down to valley again. What's that sitting on the plains under the continental divide, under the big cloudy sky? A chemical factory, Montana, and west neath the great mountains gate to Flint Creek Range, Anaconda Town, sinking the earth around to remove that dark satanic mill, the largest smokestack in the world, 1971, pouring out smoke while sulfur smelter gas belches as if copper and money and plumbing were going out of style. Road sign: Anaconda is the largest smokestack. They're advertising north on through Deer Lodge Valley where they couldn't spell 100 years ago, 30 miles to Grasshopper Diggins, Cold Creek flowing west. Little satanic truck machine, gushing black diesel smoke wavering across highway shoulder white line, piled with cedar corpses, sleep in rainy meadows under the green sloped garnet mountains, open sky, gray lightning clouds, southwest striking sapphire mountain, snow peaks. David.
All right. Butte at last. Oh, Kerouac, now test your visioned America. Brimstone pouring through the sky, smelt in tiny blue car. Insect derricks below the red mine school, scholars gazing at a hole in the moon. Piles of sand by the hospital, hills of dirt fill, wrecked autos in the ravines, metal banks surrounded by giant ash piles. Old America, red tar paper housetops and woodsides, matter junkie town. On top of the city, Montana avenues, rocks overlooking the pit, the fiery lip of the garbage dump smoking. Pronounce a mantra to purify. Om Benzo Guru Mahakala Ka Kaya Ka Kakaya. With the scarlet robed nun at dusk at the burning ground in America. Tin cans and old poetry. Helios magazines in flame. The wooden ruins of Butte dancing in the fire. Old balconies and porch rails once leaned on by hopeful, muscular lovers, fresh from the dust mines of the world's mountain, now with cracked bones and dry eyelids, mummied under the earth into Shiva's flaming mouth. Well, let Shiva try to swallow 100 years of toothpaste metal gunk. They made a lake a mile long, solid as gray jello. Mucking machine after dynamite blast, scooping up ore. Jackleg shakes the shit out of you. Trucks in the Berkeley pit, them fuckers are big. One of these days, all Butte be a big pit. Columbia Gardens, a park, always supposed to be there. Founded by Clark the Copper King, for richest hill on earth. Anaconda now destroys for copper, silver, lithium, gold. It's a mining town. There's about 100 of the mines all over the place, the holy city of Butte. Kerouac watched old card players here. W.C. Fields sat all night at a green card table. The miner with yellow hair sells snow. Trieste, Butte's gay bar, burned down a couple years ago. Some trucks go over the edge into the great pit. Took half an hour to cut the driver out of the cab 20 feet above the ground. Burlington Railroad, Anaconda, Montana Power Company, secretly Anaconda, and Butte Water Company, also Anaconda, controlled by Chase National Bank, New York. JBM Place, 26 million bucks in the red. Own all Montana. Smog from Stauffer Chemical Plant gets power from Bonneville, meets smoke from Anaconda stacks, and settles over Butte with dust from the pit. 150 trucks can park in 3 minutes flat. For $25 or $30 a day, the old times gobble speed. War of Copper Kings. Clark's Trust Fund for Columbia Gardens just to get the land. Mafia runs the bars and the police chief. The union's taken care of guys with shoulders a foot thick. Anaconda's lawyers buy cabins on Flathead Lake. A lot of dust tonight. Down in the hole, silicosis and emphysema, copper dust, sharp in the lungs. Anaconda won't pay, takes all your wind away. Sue them and you get blackballed. Police power, a dedicated business with guns protecting Anaconda. Lots of payoff. Police chief is the mafia in Butte with Anaconda, hand in hand, said the short, dark-haired spiritual truck driver in the hole, who'd known Neil in Palo Alto. Now see this young college student is high on LSD living in Redwood City. As Cassidy explained the situation to imaginary parents, acting out all 6 levels and later 16 sides of every question, to the boy I met years later at Butte's Terminal Bar, who thus quoting recollected Neil. It's Bob.
American president, whom Chase Bank Anaconda controls, in this our present war, have you kissed the holy breast of the most beautiful mine worker in America? Nixon, go down on your knees and adore the great pit filled with toothpaste metal slime, and Anaconda's great green jism overspreading the hell abyss floor. Sarvaduka, Sarvanika, first noble truth, a Butte, et by its own being, the money pit. No need 40% war metal. What percent pennies and quarters? Money wasted, cut down 2/3, appetite changing, grasping attachment to Anaconda matter, and cut Chase Manhattan's growth octopus tentacles so reduce consumption to human measure. And that copper sustains the electric world about us. From the pits of Butte and Salt Lake, the electric blinking transistor intelligent systems are copper wired. Hollywood shines out of the pit at Butte and out of the coal at Four Corners. Blue lilacs sweet smell over Butte and blossom down Ruby Valley floor. Hundreds of cows stretched out at roadside by rail tracks, grassy shoulder at Lauren, 3-day trek to high mountain meadows for summer grazing. Bring 'em back to Green Valley floor this fall. It's mellow juice, a raw unk, branded crude on brown fur rumps, cow flop shit medicine spread on one festering mammy's buttock. Oh, whom? A valley more vast, Sphinx mountain conglomerate, Lord 10,000 feet helmeted up from the plain, alluvial fan moistening green tree roots dark at stream bedside, sloped huge grass shelved plains overhanging tufted rich Madison River bottom, barned and signposted, the snow water flows to Three Forks. And years ago, my mother went to see the doctor with her headache and a hole in her heart. Green ravens come home to Butte Pit at dawn from over the hill. Rig operators throw food out the cab windows at 4 a.m. All work stopped for dawn lunch. Gate gate paragate parasam gate bodhi savaha. Vibrating in the metal cab of Moonland, soft grassy slopes rising to pines over Madison's green river, power and glory, and flat roads, white line that masters these distances we glide, roaring across. Oh, now I seen space, same as Columbia Gorge. Gray trees drowned in Crown Quake Lake. Past faithful geyser spouting whitely. Chill rain returned to Teton, mist wrapped dusk tops, snowy ranged above gray shining lake under heaven. June, I'm 46 years here. Mountains meditating, late afternoon, all night, all morn, fogs drifting past their heads like thoughts, dreams around our knees, white meditation, Dzogchen Rinpoche, precious ones at rest, covered with rainbows, snout full of clouds, pink snowed at sunset. End of Fall of America.
Yes.
I'm emceeing this, so I'm required to say something, and I will. But it was so beautiful to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't move on without, Alan, he had this wonderful poetics. He had a poetics that I don't think he gets enough credit for. This kind of ticker tape, which we called poetry the journalism of the soul.
Mm.
And a kind of the way images flowed out of him, and you keep coming back just listening to these two wonderful readers. The syllables come to life in this wonderful poetic ticker tape flowing out of.
It's like Old English.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you both, not only for what you did tonight, but for all the service you did. Wonderful man.
Yeah.
Who he's every time I watch the news now, I feel bereft of Allen Ginsberg. I need that ticker tape again. Anyway, none of that. Not going to go there. There are enough things to foul the air without mentioning that. Anyway, I want to introduce the next poet, who I'm just learning from reading my advanced copy of Big Scream 59 and really enjoying the work. He's published 7 books of poetry. He's written a Haibun memoir. Now, I've been writing sort of in the memoir vein a lot recently myself, and I've been using a combination of 2-line poems, prose poems, and I'm really working on the notion of the footnote as a kind of form in itself in writing long footnotes. Anyway, James Lenfeste has written his own haibun, and it's his memoir. It's called Seeking the Cave. The first haibun, or combination of verse and prose, or the first one I know of, was written by a guy named Basho in Japan about 700 or 800 years ago. And he wrote The Narrow Road to the Deep North, according to the Penguin translator, mixing prose and poetry and fancy-ass haiku court form, making it real. Just like Allen made that real. Anyway, please, everybody, this guy was also a journalist for the Star Tribune. He won several awards for his page one awards. I was a journalist. They ain't easy. That don't come too easy. They get no, I won't go there. Next, James Lenfeste. Big hand, everybody.
God, I'm a little stunned here. To that incredible travelogue music ticker tape of Allen Ginsberg. That I took that a very similar trip, but I didn't write about it in that way. But 1974, where all this began for David Coe, resonated when you mentioned that earlier. 1974 was the year I fell in love with the poetry of Han Shan, Cold Mountain, and it took many years to travel to seek the cave, to actually go to China to find out what that was about. And so along the way, I developed a little form I call a Han Shaner, which is a little line version, my own approach to the classical Chinese 8-line poem. And these are when David asked for some poems, and I thought in the Chinese manner, these are what I found. And along the way, I have a friend who is sending these wonderful poems a day out, is a wonderful scholar and calligrapher and translator of great Chinese poetry, Pat Bin Hui. And just in the last couple of days, I pulled a couple lines out. These are from poems by Su Shi because they fit this moment. Su Shi from the Tang Dynasty. Here there are with no one to share. And I think of this, David, because I'm with big screen, we write lines with no one to share, except that you create screen for us to share them with. And then this one line from Su Shi, 12th century. A full forest of misty moon reaches the West Lake. I'm on Mackinac Island, Michigan, and the West Lake outside of is Lake Huron, which is part of Lake Michigan and which is part of the largest lake complex in the world. And it's misty and it's a full moon tonight. So, Lenfeste version of Burton Watson's Han Shan number 38. 63 years ago, I was born in this world. That was then. 76 now. We'll go 76 years ago. 10,000 miles I've traveled. Into the sea, slept by Great Lakes' ruffled waters. Read books and sang songs with those hunched around me. Through wild grandchildren, I've become immortal. Today, I brought my body to Cold Mountain to pillow my head in the stream and wondering how the new sound. Responding to a question by Burton Watson. By the way, it was the greatest translator of the last 50 of the last century of ancient Chinese poems. Whaley in the first half of the century, Burton Watson in the second, Red Pine and others in our century. Responding to a question because he brought me the voice of Cold Mountain. I do not speak. Hear that from Ping soon. And so I visited him in Japan, where he life. Responding to a question by Burton Watson. After decades of reading American poetry from Japan, he wonders these language poets celebrated back home. I say in the university, if you read them, in the other world. In certain big cities, the beauties draw 100 a night. I assure him poets who love the soul still sing in America. Some leave you gasping, abandoned to illuminated desires. Others elucidate your dreams. Poor posture on the earth. This is an odd one. Bee people. My friend Marla Spivak is one of the great bee entomologists. We hope, although they're all in big trouble, as you know. These other little characters throughout history, all real people. So headlines about the bee people. Karl von Frisch observed your elegant dancers like a voyeur. Eva Crane to study your hearts. Marla Spivak, God saved your queens teeming with mites. Hindus follow you like saints up the high cliffs. Sappho got it wrong. Sappho got it wrong. Neither honeybees for me. For they, like her, hum the love, dancing and butt shaking abandon. Sweetness they've found. And a couple of short more. They're all short, just 8 lines. Shanghai, where we ended. 15th floor night, neon panorama game show city. Morning on the Bund, Guigong, dancers, Rolex vendors. Afternoon, we seek the house of writer Lu Xuan. Hideout in the old city safe from Japanese invaders. This is him speaking. To be a writer, I fell into censorship's fabrications. To defy society, I chose against the world's desire. Thank you, Allen Ginsberg. To defy society, I chose against the world's desire. Slanders can destroy a man, and it is in vain. I leave on paper only a voice. And short ones. My pal Bill Porter, I said, who took me to China, he was my guide in China, who knows more about China, except for maybe Wang Ping, than anybody because he traveled over when it was allowed. He was my guide. And he is I saw some of his translations, and for some reason I wanted to tighten. Lenfeste's version of Han Shan's number 35, were Bill Porter. Unclear the trail to empty the whistle and whir go the birds in their hill, no human sound. I slash my face. Snow after snow buries my body. Dawn after year after year. No warm spring. And the last. So while there, we spent some time, a short one, with a guy named Paul Hansen, who lives in Nanjing and who teaches Chinese poetry. So here's a little thing called The American poet lives and translates in Nanjing, teaching English, his ears tuned to Chinese speech. He joins at Levi's shrine, where he has been many, many times. For him, the greatest place to visit is on the plaza at Hangzhou or near the park, stimulating, delicious, wireless. Okay. Thank you. Honor Cope's work, David Cope's big screen, can't even speak. And
Thank you, James.
But
I want to thank James. It was a beautiful reading. It was lovely. It was a real change up from the other as well. It was lovely with that beautiful sonor. And thank you so much, James. All the way from Tonight's the Night from Minnesota, also, because Ping Wang and James Lenfeste are both Minnesota poets. So go Twins. Anyway, Ping Wang has written 14 books of poetry, and she installation artist. She's a photographer. She's a dancer. She's a poet, and it's worth reminding people that Sappho was also a dancer poet. She believed that those feet that we see, da 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 da. In Greek, they were quantitative. They were long, long, or short, short, long, but they dance steps, and that translated into poetry. And if you think back, especially listening to Alan, you can hear the steps in the line. So this is a meeting of 1974 and 2020. It's a meeting of Minnesota, Michigan, New York, and New Jersey. But we have from Minnesota tonight also a teacher at Macalester College teaching English, Ping Wang, who is going to share her poetry with us. And I want to give the warmest possible welcome. Welcome to Backroom Broadsides, Ping Wang. Go for it.
Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. Before I start reading, I have to say something about how I became a poet in America. And I remember vividly the day I walked into Louis Walsh's classroom. It was a wrong classroom. I was supposed to take an 18th century English novel. And I walked in and Louis Walsh was teaching, and he looked insane completely. And I was very, very curious. I said, who is this guy who does not look like a professor at all? And I sat down and I wrote my first story, and Louis wrote, so you should start writing poetry and novels. And that was like Rinpoche just hit me on my head to say, this is why you're here. And then very quickly, Louis introduced me to Allen Ginsberg, who was bringing Beidao, the first group of Chinese poets, Beidao, Yanglian, Gu Chen, right, to America to do the first Chinese American Poetry Festival. And they were looking for a translator. And so I got to, even though I was hungry, I needed to work, and this is like once in a lifetime opportunity. I just jumped at the opportunity, and I worked with Bob Rosenthal for a few months, just very closely, and also with Allen Ginsberg. And it was during this translation preparation and travel with the poets, I realized I can write poetry too. And this is how I started my writing career, by stepping into the wrong stream, wrong river, but turned out to be the right river. And also at the end of the festival, Allen Ginsberg hosted a party at his apartment at the Lower East Side. And I was translating for them in his bedroom when Beidao asked, pointing at the tanka, what is that? And Allen started talking about Tibetan Buddhism and what's going on there. And Beidao was saying, oh, things are much better, don't get mad. And Allen suddenly just started yelling at me. And I was just kind of like in tears, he said, "Why are you yelling at me? I'm your translator. I'm just translating Bei Dao's work, right?" And Alan just said, "What the F do you know about Tibet?" And then Bob took Alan away and then came back with a pile of Alan's like rare books, and Alan started drawing Buddha and stars and lotus and say, "My apology for yelling about Buddha." And that is the moment I said, I need to go to Tibet. And so the minute I got my green card, I just bought a ticket and went to Tibet. And I have been going to Tibet ever since. And I have been to the Everest, the base camp, 4 times. And doing my prayer. And Alan had always wanted to visit Tibet. And I remember the first time I went there, and Alan, actually at John Cage, we were doing praying. So I told Alan I'm leaving next day for Tibet. And he said, "I wish I could go, but please visit the temples for me." And that's what I did. And so the first temple I actually visited is the Drepung temple, and I'm going to read the translation by a Tibetan poet. His name is He Zhong. He was the first one who met me at the Lhasa airport at that time, and I put a hada, the white scarf, around my neck, and I'm reading this poem for Alan, who never got to visit Tibet. 直棒式掠影，一群灰鸽子落在寺庙金顶，一群孩子被送到新佛堂，一群狗靠信徒施舍，塞西庙旁，一群小商板继续周围吆喝的生活。Glimpse of Drepung Monastery. A flock of gray pigeons landed on the temple's gilded roof. A group of children sent into Buddha's new hall. A pack of dogs fed by the faithful lying around the monastery. A crowd of peddlers selling goods as usual at the top of their lungs. The next one is called True Dark. 真正的漆黑，我感到漆黑像水一样渗透。此时的黑，我感到先是我自己的眼睛，而后是每一颗骨头、每一寸皮肤、每一个细胞的真正漆黑。我已经不知道黑了，我突然觉得，也许这就是亮。True dark. I feel dark seeping through like water. This darkness first into my eyes, then each bone, each skin, each cell of true dark. I no longer know. Suddenly I feel, perhaps this is light. So the next poem I'm going to read is by a very exciting, amazing Chinese poet from Nanjing, and we're exchanging, I'm translating his poetry into a manuscript of poetry in English, and he's translating or collaborating with me, turning my English poems into Chinese. And also I'm preparing a series of lectures and workshops online in Chinese for Chinese poets. So I'm really excited and also feel greatly challenged by this task. I haven't spoken Chinese for so long, and I actually have never really written, in Chinese. And but I want to read this poem because it was written for George Floyd, and Minnesota, Twin Cities is also the place where George Floyd happened. And so the Chinese people, this poet, every Chinese actually heard of George Floyd, and this poet wrote this piece. 运弩船，观特纳油画有感。他们把黑人像鱼装入船舱，黑人是那么驯服，沉默变成了黑人安慰自己的口香糖，身上的脂肪成了熬过航程的唯一希望。还有那么多黑人像鱼饵被抛入大海，用血的光芒照亮海水，直到鲨鱼的唇上沾满了黑人的临终遗言。假如我也是黑奴，必定会重复那尖叫的命运。我的皮也一定是黑夜的皮，我的血也一定是美术馆中最贵的血。但在鲨鱼休战之前，我只能幻想爬出那排牙齿的铁山。观完运弩船，我也试着掂一掂自己的命运。我恍然大悟，自己已是城市的黑奴，在欲望休战之前，没有谁能帮我。Slave Ship, after Turner's painting and George Floyd. They boarded Africa onto the ship like a net of fish. The slaves seemed docile, chewing silence like bubble gum. Their body fat was the only hope to survive the seafare. And so many of them were tossed like baits into the waves. Their blood lit up the sea. Their cries hung on the jaws of sharks. If I were a slave, would I repeat that screaming destiny, my skin darker than night, my blood reaching the highest bit in the museum? As sharks finish their feeding frenzy, I can only imagine crawling through the steel fence's teeth. After the slave ship, I try to weigh my own fate, how heavy it is, and I realize I have been a slave to the city. Nobody can save me from the war of desire. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Ping Wang. Well, what a beautiful reading we got from four wonderful poets tonight. And I don't know what to say. Actually, it was five wonderful poets tonight. And two of the poets in China, they have an expression for teachers. They say that teachers are like silkworms. They give up their own skills and their own talents to make silk and to pass it on. So tonight we had two silkworms in David and Bob who didn't give up, but they read the poem of a third poet who can't be here tonight. Thank goodness he was there in 1974. I also want to thank James Lenfeste for the wonderful poetry, the Chinese translation, lovely. And Ping Wang, thank you so much. The Chinese itself sounded so beautiful to me. I was wondering if I'd be able to plug into it, and I really did. It was lovely. I want to do a little Backroom Broadsides business right now. First of all, I want to point out that if you would like a copy of Big Scream number 59, it's a knockout issue. The four poets you saw tonight are all in it. I must say, I'm in it too. But there's about 20 others as well. And it's great stuff, folks. And it's only $10. And if you want it, all you have to do is send an email to davidedgecope@gmail.com. Now I'm going to spell that out. David, D-A-V-I-D, Edge, E-D-G-E, Cope, C-O-P-E, at gmail.com. And you get so much of this and so much more. And I mean, your collector? This is Allen Ginsberg's unpublished stuff from the fall of America. You know, I mean, if that's what you get out of poetry, so be it. So I want to point that out to you. Also, on October 1st, and all the people who are watching tonight who are poets in the New York area, this is an invitation. Backroom Broadsides has been going on for about 5 years. And since COVID, we've been doing it online, and we will continue to do it once a month online. But on October 1st, I'm going to give a reading at Lil Dove, across the street from the Fox and the Crow, owned by the same folks. It's going to be in the backyard. If you want to do it, we can have an open if we have, a quorum. So October 1st, 8 o'clock, Lil Dove, across the street, and Fox and the Crow can send over booze. They've got the license. You can have like a regular night at Fox and Crow, like at our normal open series. And I didn't want to ask anybody to do this because I'm asking you all now to come if you want. But I didn't want to ask any poets to kind of come and give an official reading because it's still kind of hairy, but I thought I'd take the shot. Anyway, come on down if you're not doing anything October 1st and you're in the Jersey City area. You want to get out. It's going to be outdoors. And there's going to be spacing. And bring the goddamn mask, okay? There's that. And we're going to be looking at moving the online readings to the middle Tuesday of every month. Now, I'm really hoping to get together a sort of collection of prose poets for that reading in the middle of October. But we'll see where we go. So far, we got John D'Souza, pretty good poet. And he knows his French poetry well, and he'll be doing some prose poetry. And they invented the damn thing. Anyway, folks, I want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks to the poets. Thanks to Alan. And thanks to the audience. And thanks to RNA, the people who put this on. About the audience, without you guys, Walt Whitman said, you want to have great poetry? Well, that's easy. Get a great audience. A great anything requires a great something, a great audience. Without an audience, well, nothing. Anyway, folks, you have a great night, and this damn thing will be over soon, I hope. And when it is, we'll be back in person. We will be on October 1st anyway. But thanks for coming in. Thanks for giving these wonderful poets a chance to show their shit, man. They did a good job, too. Great job, guys. Commence to dancing.